תודה רבה. אני מזמין את ארנט אנגלהרט. ההרצאה שלו תהיה באנגלית, אבל אני אתאר אותו בעברית כדי שהוא לא יבין מה אני אומר, או יבין קצת. ארנט הוא היסטוריון של תרבות, עמית מחקר במכון לייבניץ להיסטוריה ותרבות יהודית משנת 2006, וכעת גם באוניברסיטה העברית, כעמית מחקר במרכז מינרווה על שם פרנץ רוזנצוויג לחקר הספרות וההיסטוריה התרבותית של יהודי גרמניה. הוא קיבל את הדוקטורט ב-2011 באוניברסיטת לייפציג. עבודתו בהדרכתו של דן דינר עסקה בהשכלה האירופית והאנציקלופדיות היהודיות במאה ה-19 וה-20, ויצא כספר ב-2014, ומחקרו הנוכחי עוסק בתמורות שעברה הקריאה וההוצאה לאור בשפה הגרמנית בתוך התרבות היהודית בתקופת האמנסיפציה. בבקשה.
תודה. Okay, תודה רבה. אני מבין קצת עברית, but I will speak in English. In German, you also say, den letzten beißen die Hunde, the last will be catch up and bite by the dogs, so I will hurry up a little bit because we lost some time. And I will speak today about German visions of the Holy Land. I put a question mark behind, and I hope during the talk it will be clear what I mean with this. I will speak about an album or a complex of album which belong to Serena Rosen. In the archive it looks like this. I will speak mostly about this. This is the Oriental album, but also the other albums are important. This on the right below, SM, it's something like the personal album of her. So in German you call it Stammbuch, or nowadays maybe Poesie album. So it's an album where you collect different leaves or pages from different persons. This is an album from the early 1850s where you see already her artwork. Just to explain who Serena Rosen was, this is her wedding photograph. In 1854, in spring 1854, she married Georg Rosen, and this explains already the connection to the Holy Land. Georg Rosen was the second Prussian Consul residing in Jerusalem between 1852 and 1867, which is a long period. And in 1854 she came to Jerusalem, and until 1867 she lived in Jerusalem. On the right hand side, it's, there's a certain way of communicating with each other. That's the photo of her parents. It's the Jewish composer and musician Ignaz Moscheles and his wife Charlotte Emden. Ignaz Moscheles comes from Prague. He lived for a long time in Vienna, for a long time in London, and later, starting from 1846 in Leipzig. His wife Charlotte Emden belongs to the Emden family. She was something like the cousin of Heinrich Heine. So you see also in which level we are. It's like the high bourgeois culture, German, and maybe also German Jewish culture. And she was born in London in 1830. She was baptized already at the age of 0 to the Anglican Church, which is important to keep it in background when you speak about Jerusalem. In 1846 she came to Leipzig. In 1853 she met Georg Rosen, who was a student of Heinrich Leberecht Fleischer, the important and I think well-known Orientalist, the founder of the German Oriental Society at Leipzig University. They fell in love, they got married, and they came to Jerusalem. Here are some pictures from her childhood. She was raised as a musician, so here she plays with one of the famous violin players of the Gewandhaus in Leipzig. They play with 4 hands piano in the 1860s. And this is the salon of Moscheles in London, where also Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy was visiting him very often. They were very close friends. There's a strong connection between this whole history, but I will not dive into this now. This is one of the pictures from this album. Maybe just to get a background of the albums. I read the albums not as books. Although I'm a book historian, but I read them as a communication event or a trigger of communication, because it's a collection of leaves, and we will see also other medias. And it's about to understand that they are in an intermediate relation, maybe intertextual relation, and it is, I borrowed this from Vivian Liska, it's more a narrative of opportunities. It's not a closed book, it's not a fixed narrative, but you can read it in different ways. During this time, in the middle of the 19th century, there are a lot of sources where you see the books were placed on the table. So if you had an evening coming together of people, if you had a salon, you put these books, the albums on the table, and then you talked about it. It was like a starting point of communication, and we need to keep this in mind to understand what this whole issue is. I will try now to have something like 3 thematic complexes so that you see what does this mean for maybe for Oriental scholars, but also to challenge our perception of what is German, what is Jewish, what is Oriental, and maybe also to open these boundaries a little bit. So this is, I would call it a picture postcard before the picture postcard. This was painted in the 1850s, sent to London, to the brother, and later to Leipzig. And I will not read it. You see, it's described what she was painting. It's in watercolor, and it's the house where the consulate was situated. I make this very quick now, just that you know where it was. The old German consulate was not outside of the city walls; it was inside the city walls. It was on Akbat al-Takir, which is now behind the Church of Redeemer when you go down to the Temple Mount. And there was a whole complex. It was. Here you have one of the building maps from Konrad Schick. So it was in the 1850s. This was the hospice. On the other side was the priest. It changed later, and it was a whole. It was a large Arab house with 17 rooms, different levels, 3 levels, where they lived. They had a library. They had different terraces. There were people visiting. It's a large compound, and nowadays, by the way, you can access it again. It's called Dar al-Consul. It was just reconstructed with money of the European Union, and it's a very interesting place. This is where they lived. This is what they painted. They also painted the inside. Here you have the garden, and here you see already the connection to Europe. And I don't think it's only an Oriental gaze. So she writes, of course. At the background, there's the library of Georg. There's something for father that she will send. This is really like an original picture how this consulate looked in the middle of the 19th century. I would call this now, okay, that's the family complex. Of course, she wants to be in touch, so she communicates with the people at home. But you also have this. This is one of her first paintings when she arrived in the summer of 1854. This is Jaffa, of course. It's the hill from Jaffa. It's from the south. It's a perspective which is at this time still not so common. Usually you had the perspective from the north. There are also some pictures from the south, but mostly from the north. And I think it's a very original perspective on Jaffa. It was painted in the autumn of 1854, and she was visiting the house of Simeon Serapion Morat. I think here maybe it's a well-known figure. It was an Armenian. Christ who was the vice consul not only of Prussia but of a lot of different consulates in the Middle East at this time. Later, he was one of the most rich persons in Jaffa because he saw this area, which is now Sderot Yerushalayim. So this was part of the area that he kept, and they visited him. This is, by the way, this is part of what I mean with you need to read the albums together as a hypertext, as an intermediate experience, because the picture is, of course, from the photo album, and the painting, or the drawing of her is in this album. She painted more, and here you see also her connection to, I would not say post-romantic, but to contemporary styles, European styles. So this is a sketch for this drawing where she paints an Arab servant in the house of Serapion, and in the background, I think I can now not scan it in, but it's here you have a very, very detailed drawing of the hill of Jaffa, and it's a romantic tradition. It's called the room view. So you look out of the room and you see the world. And I think it's something one could talk about, how she perceives the Middle East at this time. This is from the background. This is the house it's not the house, it's the well house. He had a house next to the port because he was in charge that when the travelers or the pilgrims arrived, to put them somehow to Jerusalem. But he had this house which was in his orange planted. And here you again have a perspective on the hills of Jerusalem. I tried to connect it with contemporary photographs, and because of the angle, you see there are photographs from this perspective, but it's not that she painted after photographs. This is also, by the way, a complex we could discuss. I will bring an example for this. So this is how she arrived in the Middle East. Of course, you also have this kind of scenic pictures. It's all originals from her, from the archive. I will hurry up. Let's get back to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, you see that one can see that her perspective on Jerusalem is a different one than other contemporary painters. This is, well, now it's the Paulus House, so it's a direct perspective on Damascus Gate. This, for instance, I don't know any other painting or material from this time which focuses on the Arab cemetery outside of the city walls. Maybe I just didn't found it, but I don't know something like this. This is from her. I don't want to call it interreligious perspective, but she sees a lot of different perspectives of the city, and one could discuss why. Because she was perceived partly as European, even as German, but she also was perceived as Jewish or half Oriental, and I think this is part of her, I would say, different perspective on the holy city, on the Holy Land. Of course, she also has classical topics. So this is the Ecce Homo arc. Here is a photograph from the background. It's exactly the other side from the perspective. This is a German photographer who was in the 50s, 60s in Jerusalem. This is her watercolor of this. Yes, you also have this, the Tomb of the Kings. It was at this time a big discussion. Is this really the Tomb of the Kings or not? So the French sent August Salzmann really to make like evidence, to produce evidence. He photographed it, and this is her painting of this. Just one short remark, because I know that you are in photographs. I always wondered, and it's like a classical photograph of the 19th century, especially because of the contrast. They say it's dark and you see the light. What I found out, it was spring or winter when he made the photographs, and because at this time you needed a lot of light, just the medium worked like this. So it's not his perspective on Jerusalem at this time that it was dark and gray or whatever. It's just what the light could produce at this time. And of course, maybe she was there in summer or at a different time. Yes, we have to juxtapose it with contemporary Orientalism. This is from the photo album Karl Haag and Karl Werner, two Oriental painters at this time. This is in the private album of Serena Rosen, a sketch of Karl Haag. I will not comment so much on this. And it's interesting to open this, because when you look on the private album, you have like small sketches. So this is Bernhard Fiedler, this is Theodor Rabe, nowadays more unknown painters which were sent by the Germans, by the German king to the Middle East to document, or to have the missionary mission continuing. And this is the last one. This is in her album. This is a private album dedicated to her. And just by a lot of research, I found this in the British Library. So this is a specimen print. They really tried to make out a colored album of this, and here you have an interesting discourse about what is art and what is photography at this time. We also need to look on intermediate connections. So this is an example of the musical discussion about the Middle East. This is her father. They always were in touch. Her father sending a letter to Serena Rosen, how she perceives Oriental music. It's an interesting discourse, because she writes it's also monotonous and so on. And he answers her, no, try to listen to this. If somebody who is not educated listens for the first time to Beethoven or Mozart, it's also very monotonous or strange. So try to get a glimpse of what's going on in the Middle East. He also composed music that she played in the Anglican Church. This is here, and just that you get just to get an insight of what it is. It's contemporary, I would say, salon music. This is the sleeping song that he composed and sent to her when the first son Friedrich Rosen, later a famous Orientalist, was born in Leipzig but came to Jerusalem. So
an Serena und ihren Erstgeborenen an ihrem Geburtstage, 30. März 1857, von ihrem Vater Ignaz Moscheles.
In dem Zimmer auf und nieder sing ich groß und laut. leichte Lieder, sing ich leichte Lieder bei der Kerze, Atemschein. Schlaf, mein Mädchen, schlaf nun ein, schlaf nun ein.
You should not sleep.
An Serena
So,
und ihren
you should
Erstgeborenen.
not sleep. There are more evidences of this. We also have documentary sources who show that she played the songs and that she played Mendelssohn in the consulate. Just the last thing, this is the connection between photography and painting. So there is one of the first photographs of the Middle East, Wilhelm von Herford, in itself a very interesting career. And those are photos that I found in this Oriental album. And I just want to have your attention on this. So she used these photos and painted inside of this. So here you see, for instance, the flag. And when you look here, then you have here the flag, even with the Prussian eagle. So she used this as material, but also to show where she is. With Wilhelm von Herford, he was really one of the first photographers, and this is now turning it away from German, Oriental, but to see also the European perspective of this. He was a German. He learned in Paris. He got his photographical training in Paris. He stayed for 2 months or 3 months in Jerusalem. Also, he had to work with the light, and then he returned to Berlin and presented his photographs, one of the first photographs of the Middle East, to the Prussian king, who was very happy about it. I will stop with this and just to say the following. I think it's interesting when we look on this kind of material to understand the different angles that are put into this, and to read, once again, this not only as a German, national, or whatever, Oriental vision, but to understand that it's a cosmopolitan perspective on this, and that we have a lot of different cultural backgrounds that are connected with this. Thank you.